Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavalabha Radha Gopi Janavalabha Gopi Janavalabha Radha Gopi Janavalabha Suranandana Bhajan Janadahan Yasodanandana Bhajan Janadahan Jashodanandana Brajan Janadahandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Javihari Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Vibraya Kacharya Stotra Sata Sri Srimati Divine Grace of Acharya Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananda Gati Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnanandjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, the status quo, Chapter 8, Manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu, text number 28, correct?
Yeah.
Let's see. Kadamba Kinjalka Pishan Gavasasam Kadamba Kinjalka Pishangavashasa Swalankritam Mekalaya Nitanbe Swalankritam Mekalaya Nitanbe Harena Chananta Danena Vatsa Harena Chananta Danena Vatsa Srivatsa Vakshashtalavalabhena Srivatsa Vakshashtalavalabhena Kadamba Kinjalka Pishangavasasa Swalankritan Mekalaya Nitanbe Kadamba Kinjalka Saffron dust of the Kadamba flower Pishanga dress of the color Vasasa by clothing Su alankritam well decorated Mekalaya by the belt Nitambe on the waist Harena by the garland Cha also Ananta highly Danena valuable Vatsa my dear Vidura Shrivatsa of the transcendental marking Vakshasthala on the chest Valavena very pleasing. Translation. Please repeat. Oh my dear Vidura, the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth, resembling the saffron dust of the Kadamba flower, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with a Srivatsa marking and a necklace of unlimited value. Oh my dear Vidura, the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth resembling the saffron dust of the Kadamba flower, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with a Srivatsa marking and a necklace of unlimited value. So there's no purport to this verse. We'll read text 29. Parardhya kiyura mani praveka paryashtadordhanda sahasrasakam avyaktamulam bhuvanangripendram ahindra bhoghair adivita valsham. As a sandalwood tree is decorated with fragrant flowers and branches, the Lord's body was decorated with valuable jewels and pearls. He was the self-situated tree, the Lord of all others in the universe. And as a sandalwood tree is covered with many snakes, so the Lord's body was also decorated by the hoods of Ananta. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The word avyaktamulam is significant here. Generally, no one can see the roots of a tree. But as far as the Lord is concerned, He is the root of Himself. Because there's no other separate cause of His standing but He Himself. In the Vedas, it is said that the Lord is Shrayasra Shraya. He is His own support, and there is no other support for Him. Therefore, Abhyakta means the Supreme Lord Himself and no one else. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurumiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshatarine Panchakalpataruvescha Kripasindhuvya Evacha Vikanantavanevyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. So this section of the Bhagavatam describes the beauty of Krishna. It is recommended that we learn about the Lord in 4 categories. About His name, about His form, about His activities, and about His qualities. So the Bhagavatam description is a mixture of all these things. Although we have the curriculum, shall we say, that it's the creation, at least in the first part of the Bhagavatam, it's clear. Just the title of the cantos do explain that this is the platform where we need to learn about the Lord. As we mentioned last class here, the last section of the Bhagavad Gita, the 6 chapters, explain about how can we get out of this material world, how can we save ourselves from this prison, from these sentences, old age, disease, death, birth, etc., and everything that happens in between. So, in the same way, the Bhagavatam brings us the solution to this problem that we're in, right? And as Prabhupada sometimes will explain, when devotees will make some remarks about the potency of this process, Prabhupada will say, the problem of you all, sometimes he says Westerners, but of course in those days, majority of devotees were from the West, is that you are not afraid enough of Maya. He used to say that. And some other times Prabhupada would say, one devotee once said something about being humble. Prabhupada was talking about humility. It was in a morning walk. And then the devotee said, Prabhupada, but by becoming humble, wouldn't we become proud of being humble? And then Prabhupada, sometimes he will stop and he will go like, huh? You can hear it in the recordings. And he says, yeah, and then by becoming humble, we will fall in Maya. He said, and Prabhupada would say, you fall in Maya? You're always in Maya. So Prabhupada had this flair of teaching things in a certain way to wake us up. Jiv jago, right? So the context of the Bhagavatam is to wake us up. And how do we wake up? To our reality. Just like when you're sleeping, deep sleep, and you're dreaming. And then also the Vedas explain, Prabhupada also gives this example, that somebody who's not sleeping has to wake you up. Correct? You never get woken up by somebody. Maybe somebody's making some noise or something, or talking in their sleep. I remember in the ashram, sometimes people will, do stuff like that. I remember one devotee who was attacked by ghosts all the time. And then, we will wake up and chant Nishingadev or something. But generally, you don't get woken up by someone who's sleeping. So it needs to be someone who's outside of that state of consciousness. So the Bhagavatam brings us this information about Krishna because, as explained in the first verses of the Bhagavatam, this is the absolute truth. This is reality, distinguished from illusion. Okay, so who remembers what we were reading about here? What is that we were reading? What is that we were reading? What is the verse all about? Okay. Okay, his description about Krishna's beauty is being described here. And it's quite interesting, the Bhagavatam, how it weaves all these elements, right? Just like when the devotees are making garlands and then they are thinking, what flower should it go here? Should it look the combination? And, it's like a whole artistic endeavor. So in the same way, the devotees of Krishna has put together all these verses, all these explanations to beautify, shall we say, or to enhance or emphasize the beauty of Krishna. Krishna has many, many qualities, but the great sages, Parasara Muni, Srila Vyasadev's father, in the Vishnu Purana, is it Vishnu Purana? He explains that there are 6 main qualities. What are those 6 qualities? Who remembers? 6 qualities of Krishna. Aishwarasya, go on.
All attractive.
Attractive, yeah.
And the pastimes with devotee.
No, his 6 qualities. That's, yes. Strength, fame,
Opulence.
yeah. What else? What's that? Power, strength, same. Any other? Renunciation, set. Beauty, that's the one. Okay, so Parasara Muni explains Aishwarasya, right, that Krishna is opulent, Aishwarasya. Virashyasya, is strong. What else? Aishwarasya, Virashyasya. Yashas, he's very famous. He's very beautiful. Shri. Like Srimad means beautiful. Sri Radhika. Sri, like that. So Krishna is beautiful. And most importantly, one point that Srila Prabhupada emphasizes in his presentation of Krishna consciousness is that Krishna is a person. That's a very powerful thing. Krishna is a person. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, and this is just a quick research in regards of the words that he uses. Ridhana Maharaj in his book, Comprehensive Guide to Bhagavad Gita, something like that. He enumerates the times that Krishna refers to himself. My count, brief one, not comprehensive, it's like 300 times he refers to himself with different words. Aham, for example. Aham means I. Tesham aham samhudartha. I will save you, he says. And he uses also the word mam, M-A-M, mam. Mam evashite asamsaya. You will come to me. He says to me, I, mat, man, aham, me means to me. Right? So Prabhupada explains that this Bhagavad Gita, or the one that he produced, is called Bhagavad Gita as it is. Why he says that? Because he presents Krishna as a person, as he is. Right? Sometimes commentators, he often condemns commentators that will talk about Krishna without presenting the purport, without presenting the proper message that Krishna presents. Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhu. I am the source of everything. Right? Aham, that's the word. Right? So that not only implies, but directly indicates that Krishna is a person. In the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 8, text number 9, Krishna presents around 9 ways to think of him. He's the smallest of the smallest. Right? What else? He's the oldest. He's the one who knows everything. He's the one who maintains everything. He's transcendental. He's luminous like the sun. And he's always a person. Rupam, that's the word, Rupam. Huh? So Krishna is a person, and we are persons, right? And we have a connection with Krishna. That's the basics of the Vedic teachings. The Bhakti Shastras explain this. We're not this body, we're a spirit soul. Sarvasya chaham rinishani vishto. Everyone comes from me. Everyone is a part and parcel of me. Jagyatam Jagat, the Upanishad explains. So, Krishna is the source of everyone. That's the idea. Krishna is the source of everyone. But we're in this material world, and due to our avidya, or to our ignorance or forgetfulness, we think that we are separated. We think that we're independent. We think that we can do whatever we want, and we can get away with it. Right? Like that. And we think that we're going to have a really good time. Well, that goes on until it's too late. Right? That sounds very pessimistic. Until it's too late. So Krishna keeps calling us. Krishna keeps presenting these things to us. Like when you're driving, and sometimes you're carelessly driving. I'm carelessly driving. And then you see a sign, speed cameras used. Right? And those of us who have been hit by those fines, hefty fines, know what that feels. Got to be careful. Sometimes something crosses your way. Here, sometimes at night you have to be careful. Some time ago I was driving, coming to dress Prabhupada a couple months ago, and there was some bisons running around. Bisons. Yeah, not python. Bison, B-I-S-O-N. Yeah. And I read it online that there had been a couple of accidents. And I was just coming, it was 5-something, and there was one that has been hit by a car. The car was all smashed, and the thing was laying dead there, and the police and the whole thing was happening. So, just by, not even, that didn't happen to me, but just by seeing that it happened to someone, I felt like, it's like cold sweat. No? So this material world gives us different warnings. Huh? Sometimes the warnings come indirectly, sometimes they are directly intended for us. Old age, my Guru Maharaj, Sujapataka Swami, he says, old age disease are like small tests. Like in school, I don't know much, I didn't study here in Australia. I remember in my days in America or in South America, sometimes you have these monthly tests. Right? I don't think it happens here. Monthly test. And then you have trimester. Right? And then you have the final. Like that. So every month you have a test. And every 3 months you have a heavier test. And then you have the final test every year. I think it's easier here. So these are little tests. Getting old, getting sick, having different problems, different miseries. What are the 3 types of miseries that we experience in this world? 3 beauties of life. Nature, disaster, adidaiva, yeah. Of the mind, adhyatmika, and body, yeah.
And mosquitoes.
Poor mosquitoes. That shows you're living in Mayapur when they chase you around. Srila Prabhupada once, he went to Mexico. He went twice to Mexico and once to Venezuela. And the devotees had rented a big house in the outskirts of a city, forgot which one. And Prabhupada went to a preaching program there. A lot of people, and I think he went to the television station or something, and it was a big thing. And so they came back, and Prabhupada was in the veranda with some devotees. And the devotees were being bitten by the mosquitoes. And they noticed that they were inviting Prabhupada. And then say, Prabhupada, the mosquitoes recognize you as a pure devotee. And Prabhupada said, not in Mayapur they don't. in Mayapur, they don't discriminate. I was wrong with that one. So back to the verse. Maitreya is describing Vidura. He's describing the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth, resembling the saffron dust of the Karamba flower. So beautiful. And it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with what? Srivatsa. Srivatsa marking. And a necklace of unlimited value. As a sandalwood tree is decorated with fragrant flowers and branches, the Lord's body was decorated with valuable jewels and pearls. He was the self-situated tree, the Lord of all others in the universe. This is the part that Prabhupada is choosing to elaborate on. He was the self-situated tree, the Lord of all others in the universe. And as a sandalwood tree is covered with many snakes. Have you seen a sandalwood tree covered with many snakes? So the Lord's body was also decorated by the hoods of Ananta. Okay, so Prabhupada refers to this, the Sanskrit word here, abhyaktamulam. Abhyaktamulam. In the word by word, it says self-situated. Abhyakta. Abhyakta sometimes is inconceivable also. Abhyakta. Abhyaktamulam. Mulam means root. So the root of everything is Krishna. The first line of the Bhagavatam, if you Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, once he was giving a class in the Dhaka temple in Bangladesh, visit that temple, and he gave class on the first verse of Bhagavatam for, I believe it was 3 months, right? We generally give class one verse at a time. He gave class for a couple of months, forgot exactly, it was 2, 3, or 4, on the first verse of Bhagavatam. I don't remember if it was in the same instance, but somebody asked him something about the gopis, something about Rasa Lila. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was called Prabhupada, so Prabhupada. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati asked, what is the first verse of Bhagavatam? To the person who asked the question. And the person didn't know. He says, how you dare to ask about Rasa Lila when you don't even know the first verse of Bhagavatam? Remember when I read that pastime, with some other brahmacharis, we went and immediately started reading. Not because we wanted to ask about Rasa Lila, but because we thought, yeah, what's the point of us reading or learning things and we don't know even the beginning, the basics. So Krishna is the root of everything. Krishna is, this is interesting for those Sanskrit lovers, the word for shelter is ashraya. One of the 10 items of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam presents 10 items. So I believe ashraya is one of them. And ashraya means shelter. So here, Prabhupada refers to the Vedas, and he says that the Lord is called Swashraya Ashraya. Swa means own, like Swarupa, right? Or Swadharma, like that. Swa means own. So it's very easy. Swa Ashraya Ashraya. That person whose shelter is himself. Swashraya Ashraya. He is his own support, Prabhupada says. And there's no other support for him. So it's the same thing. He's saying the same thing twice. So in regards of that, once, I believe it was after the Krishna Balaram installation, or no, it was that same time in 1975, Ram Navami in Vrindavan. And kind of in a casual way, the devotees commented to Prabhupada. Says, Prabhupada, who's stronger? You heard that one, right? Krishna or Balaram? Because, Balaram is the Borobai, they say in Bengal, the big brother. The Borobai is Balaram is, right? And then they say, because Balaram is like this and like that, and they're describing some things. And then if you see the Krishna Balaram deities, the central deities of ISKCON Vrindavan Temple, Balaram is leaning on Krishna. So Prabhupada says, so what is Balaram's support? And then they thought of the deities. And they said, he's leaning on Krishna. He says, so Krishna is the strongest. Krishna is the source of everything, he said. He didn't elaborate that much. He just mentioned that. It's a famous pastime. And another time also, they asked Prabhupada, they say, Prabhupada, it is said that Krishna is controlled by the love of his devotees. We know that, right? In the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami says that Krishna is the most powerful. But what is more powerful than Krishna? You all know. The devotees, yes. Anyone else? Sometimes there are different verses that says this is more powerful than Radharani, yes. Rupa Goswami says devotional service is more powerful than Krishna. Why? Because through devotional service you can control Krishna. Yeah? That's Shastra. So they mentioned that to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said no. He said no. Krishna is more powerful. Krishna is independent. And then they said something like, yeah, but the gopis, they force Krishna, sometimes they torture him and they chastise him and then they, annoy him like that, And then Prabhupada made his point. He says, no, Krishna is independent. He says, he lived just for a few years, but then he left, right? The gopis were crying, but he didn't come back. Actually, he lived how many years? 10 years in Vrindavan? I've forgotten how many, 10 years. He lived only 10 years in Vrindavan. And then he lived 18 years in Mathura and 100 years in Dwaraka. So Prabhupada said, and he never came back. So like that, many times Prabhupada will make a point. He says, Krishna is, and the gopis will be doing something, or Radharani will be telling it, but at the end, Krishna will, like that. But the other day I heard a class, and Prabhupada says, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. I always forget the Sanskrit. There's a line that says that Krishna never plays a foot out of Vrindavan. So he's Achintya, he's inconceivable. How can he never leave Vrindavan? And how can he be everywhere? That is explained in the Sri Upanishad. That's why Prabhupada, when he arrived, he emphasized so strongly on us learning the philosophy. Because if we don't learn the philosophy and we don't apply the philosophy, not only learn it, there are 3 levels of the learning process. One is we receive the information. We are told different things about ourselves, about Krishna, about the world, etc. But then we have to understand it. We have to process it. We have to reflect what is that we are learning. Just like in school, primary school, high school, college, university, whatever. Then we process it, and then we apply it. Right? Even in material education, normal to say, or mainstream education, part of the training is that you go and do placement. Right? What do you call that? Practicum in Latin. Right? Practicum, placement, work placement. Or what do you call field placement? So you have to go out there, and then we have to apply it. And then when you apply it, then you realize, got 100 marks in my exam, but when it comes to apply it, then there is some weakness, there's some gap. Then you have to keep trying, and then you become an expert. So in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada explains from Rupa Goswami that we need to practice. We need to practice. We need to practice every day. Even imperfectly. Krishna says twice in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3 and chapter 18, that whatever you do in your spiritual life, even if you do it mistakenly, it's benefit. Yeah? You heard this one, right? In chapter 2 also, Neha Vikramana Shosti Pratyopayana. Swalpamapi. Even a little bit. It helps you. Do a little bit. A little bit of chanting, a little bit of reading, a little bit of praying, a little bit of prasadam. That's not a little bit. That's a problem because we generally eat too much. I eat too much. A little bit. That's what Krishna is saying. Krishna is trying to make it easier. Our situation in this prison house. But we generally are very stubborn. We think, nah, not now. I forgot which book is that. One of the small books. Prabhupada says in the beginning that commonly people think that spiritual life is for fools. Listen to this one. Huh? For fools, for poor, and for all people. Prabhupada says that. We think that spiritual life is for fools, for poor, people are always, please give me bread, give me something, help me. Or for all people. So what is the definition of all people? Huh? Old. 50 is the new, what do you say? But people try to enjoy till the end. Prabhupada was walking in Paris. In Paris there is this famous street, I don't know what the name is. I walked through there, devotees. And there's the cabarets, famous. And Prabhupada, I think they were walking, maybe morning walk or driving, and then the cabarets. And I think it was during the day, and Prabhupada saw old people going there. Old people, he says, 70 or something like that. And then Prabhupada said, just see, all men are going there to see the young, naked women, because the desire is there. So the Bhagavatam brings us this information to encourage us to wake up, like the alarm clock. Gopal Krishna just bought a new phone. So this morning the thing was going off, and he was shouting, "Shut up!" Because the modern phones, I'm not too advanced in those things. Now, you can talk to them and then they respond. So he was telling, "Stop, shut up, stop." And I woke up and I said, "It's not obeying, huh? It's not too smart," because the thing kept going on, and he was like, "Shut up, stop." He was shouting at the phone. So in the same way, the Bhagavatam is telling us, there is a recording that sometimes goes around in the internet that Prabhupada says, "Wake up, rascal, wake up." Have you heard it? "Wake up, rascal." People take offense when I send them those. You wake up. So this is what the Bhagavatam intends to wake us up. Because at this point, the first step in a spiritual life is to realize, I'm an illusion. I think I'm this body. I think I'm, like they say here, "How are you doing?" What do they say? "Not too bad." Right? Isn't it? That's the line. People don't say, "I'm doing great." No, I say, "I'm not too bad." Huh? So we're thinking we're not doing too bad. And then we forget, that's the illusion, Maya. We forget what's coming. What's that verse from Bhagavatam? Ayur harati vahipunsam. That every time that we see the sun rises, ayur harati vahipunsam. For every person, everyone. Udyam ashtam nayan aso. Udayam means when it rises, and Ashtam means when it sets. Every sunrise and every sunset, I am officially a beach bum, according to my Guru Maharaj, so I love the beach and I love the sun, and one of those fools. So we see the sunrise, oh, it's so beautiful. And then we see the sunset, oh, so romantic. Yeah? What does the Bhagavatam says? Ayur harati vai punsam. Udyam ashta. Ayam na so. And everything that happens in between, sunrise and sunset, you know what's happening? Your life is being taken away. Huh? That's what's happening. And one is thinking, it's so beautiful, so nice. I think like that still. Yeah? But Bhagavatam says, hey, wake up, you fool. It's not reality. Ayud harati vai punsam. Every sunrise and every sunset is one less day for us to achieve perfection. When Kamsa was wanting to kill Devaki, you know the story in the first chapter of Krishna book, and he was about to kill her. His own sister pulled his sword because he heard this voice that says that the eighth child will kill him. Pull his sword. He was about to kill him. Vasudev, Prabhupada explains, being an expert Vedic follower, he tells them, he became very philosophical. And he said, what is this death, life and death? Everyone is dying. Every day, we say, happy birthday, we say, right? Happy birthday. I remember one of our spiritual masters in South America, Prabhu, he says, happy birthday means 1 year less to that moment, to that final exam. That's the idea. So what do we need to do between sunrise and sunset? We need to hear about Krishna. So the question here it is, to end here, the question here is, what would you do? This is Prabhupada. What would you do if you knew that you have 7 minutes to live? What would you do if you knew that you had 7 days to live? What would you do if you would know that you have 70 years to live? Some of you have 70. For sure not in this body. But what would you do? That's the question. Prabhupada sometimes will present the questions. What would you do? Right? Where would you go? Would you cry? Would you go on a spending spree? Would you go to cross all the items in your bucket list? I want to go to this place. I want to go to that place. Right? What would you do? Yeah, that's a question that we have to ask ourselves. So here we have the example of not only one person, not only Parikshit Maharaj, who had 7 days to live, but so many others. And Prabhupada says we're in the same boat. Everyone is coming closer to that moment. But there are good news. What are those good news? We are not the body. If we read chapter 2, all the problems are gone. Right? In Mumbai, we have our Bhaktivedanta Hospital. Amazing place. Bhaktivedanta Hospitals. You know what the devotees do? They have teams of devotees, 2, 3 or so, and then they go with a little cart and to all the rooms where people are. Anyone has been to the Bhaktivedanta Hospital? Has anyone visited? No? Have you? No? So they have a little cart with Jagannath deities, small Jagannath deities. Like when the Ratha Yatra was there and the kids were having their mini Ratha Yatra, just like that. Smaller maybe. And they go and then give darshan, and then Prabhupada is chanting, and then they give books. They give books or read some Bhagavad Gita or something. So everyone is, suffering with ache, this, that, the other operation, so many things. And then the devotees bring Krishna consciousness and everyone feels happier. Right? So that's the idea. This is, Prabhupada called this place a prison house sometimes. Sometimes call them lunatic asylum. You know what a lunatic asylum is? What they call cuckoo's place. Yeah, where people are crazy, the loonies. Loonies, that's where it comes from. Loonies means the moon, from the moon. Luna. Luna is in Spanish and Latin. Lunatic. That means that you have lost your mind. Sometimes you call that. But there's good news also that astihi eko mahan guna. There is a good quality of this place, especially in this age. What is that good quality? You should know this. Chanting the holy name. That Sukadev Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj. How the verse starts? Forgot now. The 11th canto. That in this age of Kali, Kalyardoshanide Rajam, my dear king, Sukadev Goswami is giving the Bhagavatam class. My dear king, in this age, there are many bad qualities. There are many bad things. Kalyardoshanide. There's an ocean. You see the ocean? It's an ocean of bad qualities. Kalyardoshanide Rajam. Asti. But Eko Mahan Guna. There is one great good quality. Kirtanat eva Krishnasya. Right? That's the good quality. That we can chant. And by chanting, we can, Prabhupada says, in reference to the Pandavas. You know that the Pandavas, they walk back home, back to Godhead? You know that? It's described in the Mahabharata, it's described also in the Bhagavatam. They walk back to Godhead. Like, they have Mount Warning. I always wanted to go there, but they say it's closed, right? You cannot go. We always thinking of my wife, we say, oh, it would be nice to go. So we have driven close by. So imagine, back to Godhead is up there. Okay, so just walk. So the Pandavas walked back home, back to Godhead. And Prabhupada commented on that. He said, and you can chant your way back home, back to Godhead. So by chanting, we can go back. And sometimes we just have to do this simple activity of sitting and reading. Sometimes it's, the Sanskrit, I don't know Sanskrit. I've done it for so long. Oh, who's giving class? Oh, it's going to be a bit boring. Okay, I'm going to be there for a few minutes and Yeah, I know this prabhu, I know this mata. It goes on. But all what we need to do is just like Prabhupada gives the example of the electric escalator, that you just have to hop on and just stay there. Yeah. So if we just stay, we will get there at some point. And even if we don't make it in this lifetime, some of us, we know we have to come back and continue in other incarnations. But we are heading towards that. Krishna says, whatever little you do is like if you have your saving accounts and if you have $10, right? And if you don't deposit nothing on that bank account, after 10 years, you go and says, I want to put $1 more in there. Okay, so you put down, you have 11, like that. So whatever we do in this lifetime, we accumulate, right? And then in the next lifetime, like that, then we continue, like that. However, that's not what Prabhupada wanted, right? What's that Prabhupada wanted? What did he say? What did he say? Is that all right in many lifetimes? Is it okay? One lifetime. One lifetime. I think I told the story that one Mata Inanda Dayini, Devidasi, Prabhupada disciple, Argentinian, she went to see Prabhupada. She told us this story in Ecuador. And then, they were walking behind Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was, sometimes in his morning walks, he would get into this mood of intensity. It's like he's seeing that this what was that? Nalalida Loka. This world, it's burning. Here in Australia, one of the most famous items of Australia is the bushfires. And sometimes I have seen some of those videos. It's horrible how these animals, these koalas and little kangaroos and wallabies, they are burned. It's horrible. It's horrible. So Prabhupada, sometimes he will get into this mood that, and then he said, you have to take up Krishna consciousness. And then he said like that. And he was with his cane, tum, tum, tum. And then he said, you have to take up Krishna consciousness. He was, tuk. You can hear it in the recording. Tuck, tuck, tuck. So one devotee was translating. Rinanda Maharaj and Virabahu Prabhu were translating. But Prabhupada would say, some people were able to catch a little bit of what he said. And then he said, in this lifetime. And then one Mati at the back, this Mati, she said, in this lifetime? Like sometimes we think out loud. He says, in this lifetime? And then Prabhupada heard it. So Prabhupada stopped walking, boom, put his cane down. And he said, looked at her like, upset how you dared to challenge my statement. And she was all sheepishly, thinking, I hope he doesn't chastise me. And then, but she tells that when she saw Prabhupada, it wasn't that he was angry or anything like that. He was just concerned. He was seriously concerned. Right? Like if somebody goes to the doctor and says, oh, you have cancer, lung cancer, and you have to stop smoking. And the person goes like, stop smoking completely? Like now? Like it doesn't make sense. So Prabhupada turned around and looked at her and says, in this lifetime. Like, she always told us that story, that in this lifetime. So Prabhupada wanted us in this lifetime. So we have to endeavor and try that at least in this lifetime. We have to endeavor. That's all we can. And like I asked my Guru Maharaj, he said, but if we fail, if we fall, if we commit mistakes, if we are not as good as we should, then he said, it's not a matter of becoming perfect. It's a matter of trying. That's it. He says, just by trying, Krishna is pleased. And he says that in the Bhagavad Gita a few times. So this is about the beauty of Krishna, and understanding who Krishna is, and how powerful, beautiful, knowledgeable, detached, and how supportive, and how good friend he is. Okay, any questions, any points, topics, comments? Mate, you always have good questions. Hare Krishna. No. Mate, the usual question. Your service is to put good questions.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. You were mentioning about this one lifetime, and we feel that we have so much baggage, we have so much, it's not just this lifetime, it's so many previous lifetimes, impressions, the subtle impressions, and it seems that even physically we do the physical act of devotional service, it's not enough because that internal process has to be there, because we also understand that someone comparatively may not be able to do much, but they've given their heart and their life to Krishna, but maybe some circumstance they can't do the external process of devotional service. So could you talk more about the internal one, because it seems that that is the main key. It's not just the external, because we can do it mechanically.
So internal versus external. This new sannyasi, what's his name? Bhagavan Swayam Keshav Maharaj. I heard, due to the insistence of my wife, I heard a class of him. I have heard classes of him when he was a brahmachari. And he talked about that wonderful class, external versus internal. And he says that, I say that that point that you made, that you think it's not enough, it's a good symptom. Prabhupada explains that. That's a good symptom. That the Acharyas teaches us that it's a good symptom to think it's not good enough. Because when you think, oh, I have done enough, that's not a good symptom. That's pride. So that's one point. Maharaj explains that we need to do the external, and then we have to strive for the internal. And when we don't have the internal, then we have to associate those who are into the internal sort of level. So we look, as the Upadeshamrita, text number 5 recommends, serve and associate those devotees who are very advanced. And what is that characteristic of the devotees who are advanced? Remember that text number 5? You know, Upadeshamrita, text 5? Ata, Sri Krishna Namadi, which one? No, that's not. The verse says, Rupa Goswami says, those who do not have the tendency to criticize others. So those are the devotees that we need to, associate with. And then we learn from them, because they have pushed everything away and they're just going deep inside themselves. I need to surrender. So the first characteristic of someone who wants to get cured is someone who admits that he or she is sick. I am sick, I'm in Maya, I'm limited, I'm imperfect, I commit mistakes, etc., etc. And therefore that person has a hope. One time a psychologist told me, there are two kinds of crazy people. She's not a devotee. She said, those who admit they're crazy and those who don't admit they're crazy. That's the only difference. One admits it and one doesn't, but everyone's crazy. I remember. And I was preaching to her saying that our guru, founder, said the same thing. So how to go deep in to associate with those who are very internal or internalized in their practice and do what they do. That's one time I heard Amrita Swami saying, just do what they do. He says, go where they go, live how they live. There's a reason why. You think it's boring or it's too much or it's extreme, but there's a reason why they're doing what they're doing. Because going in, it's much more pleasurable, it's more fulfilling, it's much more beneficial for us and for everybody. But I'm just saying this theoretically. I know this theoretically. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Gaura Pramanandi.